More big CEOs are talking about subscription services and their doubts about things like Xbox Game Pass. Another big Xbox Game Pass game seems like it is going to be delayed until 2023. And Fable. Lots of people are talking about Fable with the entire thing of it being scaled down, but is it just unnecessary fear, uncertainty, and doubt? So there's been a lot of rumors and speculation going around as to how Fable is doing in terms of its development. There was this clip that occurred on the XNC podcast, and it was with Gaz from Game On Daily talking about Fable and how it has been scaled down in its development. Now, here is the clip. We'll play it here so you can hear what he says.
I've talked about this in a couple shows ago.
Not a smaller game, by the way. Someone, don't run away with.
Oh, Fable.
Please don't make articles on this. It's Fable. People say scale down. Doesn't mean games in scope always get scaled down. Ultimately,
and for the better sometimes.
Yeah, you condense it. You come at this big scope and you condense it. This is, I've not seen the game. I've been told this, so call it hearsay. So don't write articles on it.
So there you have it. They're talking about scoping, as they call it, which is they have these big ideas for video games and then they scope them down. They scale them down to have a more complete, polished game, and it leads to overall a better product. Because you have a game that is so big, has so many different ideas, you're just going to get a jumbled mess as to a product that we are playing. And you heard that clip there, and Gaz is saying, don't run away with this, don't write articles about this, and take it just as a grain of salt, as hearsay from things that he has heard about Fable. And clearly that is not what has happened, as the video game industry and journalists have been writing articles about Fable, getting people concerned as to how well this game is going through in development. So that's what he said. And then we have here a response to this from Amy, who is a senior producer on Fable at Playground Games. And she says this: I wanted to clear something up about scoping. It is a normal, necessary, and healthy part of game development. I can guarantee that every single AAA game you've ever played will have gone through scoping regularly during development. Its intention is to make sure the teams are focused under one clear vision and can get it made in the time they have without killing themselves. Games that haven't been scoped correctly often have delays and crunch, both we should be aiming to avoid whenever possible. So there you have it, scoping, a very normal thing that happens with all video games. You think about the video game industry today with the amount of delays that have been going on. A big problem probably that occurs with these massive AAA games, these big open world style of games, is the lack of scoping, the inability to actually decide on an idea and move forward with that idea and then create a polished video game for people to be able to play in a reasonable amount of time. Because what we're seeing right now within the video game industry is games are getting announced and then we're not seeing anything for these games for 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 years out before something actually gets released into our hands, because they want to build that hype. They want you to get excited about the product. But with that hype and excitement, if a game is taking forever to come out, it definitely starts to dwindle. You think about some recent games. For example, Halo had to get delayed an entire year. Probably one of the big things why it had to get delayed was because they had this huge idea for Halo Infinite, and they had to scale it down to something more realistic that could be released in a reasonable amount of time. You take a look at the art book, you take a look at some of the early videos of Halo Infinite, and there are some things in those videos and within the art book that aren't in the game, at least yet, with the initial launch of the campaign. You think about something like Perfect Dark, how we've been hearing the conflictions between some of the studio wanting to go one way, the other side of the studio wanting to go the other way, and Daryl Gallagher having to put his foot down and make a decision as to where the game is going to be going and how they're going to continue with development so that they can meet deadlines to get the game out for Perfect Dark on a reasonable timeline. So scoping, very healthy part of game development. That's something I think is pretty common sense. It's not surprising that games start out so big with all these ideas and they get brought down into something smaller. Doesn't mean the game's going to be bad. Doesn't mean it's going to be a tiny world or anything like that. Just a normal part of game development that is completely getting blown out of proportion when it comes to this Fable story. But we go down here into the comments to see what some people have to say. You have Hazard Gaming saying, it's always good to hear rumors be put to rest, which it is. And you can see as soon as Gaz had talked about that, he was like, oh no, people are going to take this, run with it, and make all these articles and all of this fear, uncertainty, and doubt stuff about Fable. And they did. You have this person here saying scoping is where they tighten aspects of the game to align it with overall visions of the game. Crunch is where developers work high levels of overtime to complete a project on time. And crunch is definitely something that the industry has been trying to reduce. You've heard Xbox come out and kind of want to not have as much crunch within their studios, and they go ahead and they delay stuff. But I think ideally going forward, when a game isn't announced, you want it out within that reasonable timeline. You want it to meet the release date that they have mentioned. For example, even with Starfield, I'm sure they really wanted that sexy November 11th, 2022 release date. And scoping probably played a large role into them choosing that date. Now, obviously, they've had to delay the game. It's not a huge delay, but it's probably just for polishing up the game before it comes out. This person says, here's my position. Is the consumer supposed to care about any of these things? My only concern should be is the quality of the product I'm paying for. Isn't that true? And I mean, ideally, yes. I mean, that's what people should care about. It's when you get the game in your hands. Is it a quality product? But people love to look at everything leading up to the release of these big games. So again, just a rumor being put to rest. I have lots of faith in Playground based off of their previous works that Fable is going to be a very polished and a very next generation, a very quality style of game. And I just can't wait to see more about it. Maybe it'll be a surprise something at the June 12th show, whether that's gameplay, whether that is just another announcement for it, a teaser trailer, whatever it is. I hope to see more of Fable soon. All right, jumping over here to some more news regarding Xbox Game Pass and another big CEO, a big prominent person within the video game industry being skeptical as to how these subscription services are going to work going forward. So this comes via Strauss Zelnick, who is Take-Two's CEO, who spoke with GameIndustry.biz and talked about subscription services, including Xbox Game Pass. He says here, we've supported various subscription services and we're happy to do so. Our skepticism has been around making frontline console products available day and date with subscription. That doesn't make any sense to us because economically speaking, we don't think consumers are prepared to pay for that. Why would they? And we can't afford to turn our business upside down in a way that doesn't make sense economically. So that's an interesting point because he's pretty much going along the same lines as to what Sony has said. And if you compare some of the Sony first-party games and then some of the Take-Two games, they have made tons of money off of selling their games. They have some of the biggest franchises and IPs in terms of selling those copies with full price $60 or $70 price tags. So for them, they want to continue to cash in on those games, selling them at full price when they release, and then maybe later putting those into a subscription service. So they're going to make the money right off the bat from selling games full price. And then later on, once the amount of people buying these games start to dwindle, you give it to a subscription service and you're going to make a bag of money from making a deal with, for example, Xbox and Xbox Game Pass. So for them right now, they don't want anybody to be thinking that they can put their games into a subscription service on day one and it be sustainable. You look at what Xbox has been doing with their first party games like Halo, like Forza Horizon. They put those games into Xbox Game Pass on day one and they still sell millions and millions of copies on other platforms. That's the key. You put it into Game Pass day one, people are still buying them, as we saw especially with Forza Horizon 5 with the early access version of the game. Millions of people bought that before even jumping into it on Xbox Game Pass, and then millions of more people bought it on Steam. So they were able to get it out to tons of people who are subscribed to the Game Pass service and still sell copies of those games on the same day that it released across different platforms. He continues on here to say, so there always has to be an intersection between what the consumer wants, what the publisher is able to do, and it doesn't make sense to do it for frontline properties in our opinion. I think Sony minimally agrees with us because they've said so. It can be potentially great for catalog properties. Those are properties that have been in the market for a while. If their price has been reduced, it can make economic sense to offer those on a subscription basis. This company does not operate on one person's opinion, including mine, and when it makes sense, we'll support subscription services. And if that's where the consumer wants to be, that's where we'll be. It's one of the terrifying things about working in video games that we're such on the cutting edge of everything that any prediction will inevitably make someone look foolish. So interesting stuff here from what he is saying, basically that right now, his personal opinion is that the big upcoming Take-Two titles aren't going to be entering a subscription service going forward because they just don't think that it is economically responsible for the company to do that. They believe to put these games into the service, it has to be once the sales are dwindling and once they're older titles, which will kind of revitalize them. But they've also done things like put in the GTA trilogy remastered into subscription services. We saw one of the games go to PS Plus and also one go over to Xbox Game Pass. Maybe that's because that was a game that just wasn't getting the best PR in terms of how the update was going, all of the issues with the game when it first came out. So they're thinking they knew that was going to be a problem. So let's put it into a subscription service to kind of offset that and get people to still check out and play it. Again, this is just another person's opinion, but we've seen the numbers about the sustainability of Xbox Game Pass from Phil Spencer talking about it. We've seen the numbers that people play more games on Xbox Game Pass. They buy more games on Xbox Game Pass. They spend more money once they've discovered games through the services and through the Xbox network and all that type of stuff. So it's one person's opinion. Right now, what we are seeing is Xbox Game Pass can be successful with releasing big games into the service on day one. And hopefully we will be getting more of those. And hopefully there will be some big announcements on June 12th. All right, let's talk about this. And it is some more Jim Ryan quotes when it comes to Xbox Game Pass. He was asked in an investor's Q&A about Xbox Game Pass, and he continues with the same response, the same virtuous cycle response, saying here, we are in a virtuous cycle where success has allowed investment, which has generated more success, which is allowing us to invest more and will hopefully generate yet more success. The virtuous cycle, we feel that if we were to move to a different model, which involved putting our AAA games into a subscription service on day one, we feel that there is significant risk that the virtuous cycle that we've established so successfully would be compromised and potentially broken. We definitely feel that it is not in the best interest of the PlayStation gamer. That is our view on that particular issue. Now, this I find extremely interesting again, where he says he does not see that putting day one PlayStation games into a subscription service is in the best interest of the PlayStation gamer. And I'm guessing his reasoning is he thinks if they do that, they are not going to be able to continue to make the same quality games that they are making from PlayStation first party studios, which I absolutely think he's just kind of making that up, kind of lying about that overall, because he knows that the PlayStation gamers, the fanboys, the people who are huge fans of PlayStation will continue to pay whatever PlayStation asks them to pay for their first party games. Now, that is a small percentage of people if you think about the overall amount of people that play games on PlayStation. Not every single person who has a PlayStation 5 is running out and buying first party PlayStation games at $70 when they launch. It is a small fraction of their base that generates a ton of revenue for them when these games come out, buying them at that $70. Now, he also mentions here that their success has allowed investment, which has generated more success, which allows them to invest more to generate more success. That's that virtuous cycle that he continuously talks about. Now, for sure, PlayStation has done a great job of that over the last generations with the PlayStation first party games. People buy those up. They sell millions and millions and millions of copies every time they release. But we are seeing statistics that are showing that that strategy is something that probably needs to be looked at, because it isn't going to be sustainable year over year for continued growth in their revenues compared to other companies out there. We talked about this last week, and it was here showing that Xbox Game Pass has given Microsoft the healthy growth where other platforms and other platform holders faced challenges. And you look at the year over year growth from 2020 to 2021. Sony is one of the only companies here, or it is the only one here, that was actually down year over year, where you had Microsoft up almost 10%. And a lot of this had to do with the fact that they had the Xbox Game Pass, the subscription, and just great services that was generating a lot more revenue than PlayStation, relying solely on releasing the first party game, charging $70, and then hoping people go out and buy that, and then hoping you're able to get out a good amount of first party games every single year to continue to generate that year over year growth. So when Jim Ryan continuously says that you can't put first party games into a subscription service because it's not going to be what the gamer wants, it's not going to allow them to continue to get more investments so that they can invest more and be more successful, I'm just not buying it when we look at the numbers as to what is going on within the gaming industry. Again, my stance on this has really never change. And it may if some more numbers come out throughout the years. I'm always open to changing the way I see these things. But my stance is pretty much that, hey, he knows that PlayStation gamers are literally going to buy whatever they put out, whatever price they put out. They will defend it. I mean, you've seen fanboys on social media saying that it's better, they're happier, they spend $70 on a game rather than getting them day one into a subscription service. So that right there, I think, is what he says he knows that they can capitalize on, especially without getting the investment from the gamers who are willing to spend that money. And I'm all for spending money on good products. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, but when these multi-trillion, multi-billion dollar companies are telling you that the only way you're going to be able to get more products going forward, more quality products, is by spending $10 more, which is the $70 on their upcoming games. Essentially, in my opinion, they're just lying to you because they know that you are going to spend that money. All right, we got some conflicting reports here on a big day one Xbox Game Pass game that I think a lot of people are looking forward to, including myself, which is Atomic Heart, and it being delayed. Now, if this game does get delayed until 2023, it is absolutely not a surprise with the conflict going on in Ukraine and Mudfish, the developers behind Atomic Heart, having to move, find a safe place to be able to work and finish off of this game. We also heard recently that they just started development on this game again after having to take a month off. But now we are having these reports here, and take this with a grain of salt because there is conflicting information on whether this is true or not. So this comes via a WhatsApp chat where they say here they got some information, this website here, xgp.pl, this Polish website, from somebody who's very close to the development of Atomic Heart. And they asked, what about the release date? Is it still set to 2022? And the response is Atomic Heart was supposed to launch in November/December, but I don't think that's going to happen. They still would like to release it in 2022, but the development stopped for over a month. It is now resumed, but there is still a lot of work to do. Nothing is settled yet, but the game will most likely be postponed to the first quarter of 2023. Now, again, that wouldn't be a surprise if this happens, if this later comes out that it is being postponed. But as of right now, we do have this conflicting report here from Hazardor Gaming here, who says that they have this information that it isn't being delayed as of what they know right now. And this was a translated text here. And what they are saying here, that the news slipped about Poland. Our official answer is stuffing. Development did not stop. We did not give any comments to the Polish edition. Mudfish has no offices in Poland. So yeah, obviously the translation isn't going to be perfect, but based off of this and wherever he got this information from, it looks like the development hasn't stopped and they haven't officially delayed the game. This could be one of those cases where they don't say anything until they put out an official statement. So they're going to continue to say it isn't delayed until that official statement comes. But either way, it's not that huge of a deal. I think at the end of the day, people will understand if this game gets delayed, but it is still a game a lot of people are looking forward to. It is a big title coming to Xbox Game Pass in day one. And whenever they're able to get this game out, whether it is by the end of 2022, which it is planned for so far, or beginning 2023, I'm very excited to check it out. And hey, maybe June 12th, they will give us more information. Maybe they will solidify the release date, or they will just show off more gameplay, then later come out and say that's pushed to 2023. Anyways, guys, that's it for me. Let me know your thoughts on Strauss Zelnick and Jim Ryan's comments about subscription services for gaming not being sustainable. What do you think about Fable? Do you think that entire thing was blown out of proportion? Or are you now worried about the future of Fable from Playground Games? And what are your thoughts on Atomic Heart being delayed? If you enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up button. If you're new here, you liked what you saw, consider hitting that subscribe button. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for your support. And I'll catch you in the next video.
Bye.